What are we gonna do when we get back?
What are we gonna do when we get back?
I take a shower and hit the rack.
Take a shower and hit the rack.
Welcome to Charlie Mike. If you're a combat veteran with an entrepreneurial bug and want to know what highly successful combat veteranpreneurs are doing to transform their sacrifice and experience to create their visual reality, then this is dedicated to your inspiring and fulfilling future. And now your host, Dwayne Perrell.
No way, gotta run, beat, lots of fun.
Invest in Yourself ebook is my free gift to you for listening to the show and becoming part of the CO Nation. To receive your free gift, please go to landmarklifecoaching.com. Thank you for joining us on this special edition episode. There are so many courageous champions who support our veterans that do it purely out of admiration and love for the sacrifice and service exemplified by our veterans. Not for credit, not for recognition, and not for money. These courageous champions stand in the shadows of our veterans and do all they can to help make their futures fulfilling and empowering, because that's what each and every veteran deserves. Our guest today is Doc Collins. Doc believes in bringing healing, hope, and understanding to the military families. His first of 5-book series will hit Amazon and bookshelves everywhere this October. While speaking in Dallas this spring, he landed a 3-book deal with Scholastic, writing children's books. He'll co-author with his sons, Titus and Maximus, helping the children of our nation's warfighter community understand the principles of what makes Mommy and Daddy so outstanding. He's shared the international speaking stages with the likes of Bill Hybels, Dr. Chet Zalasko, and Condoleezza Rice. He's most recently the host of MyCrucible.tv, an interactive race preparation platform that organizes 5Ks, 10Ks, half, and full marathons across the U.S. Collins now builds businesses and consults on numerous projects from his home in Gulf Shores, Alabama. All right, Doc. Well, welcome to the show.
Dwayne, thank you so much for having me. It's awesome being here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Doc and I have had a chance to be on another show together, as well as, some conversations on some entrepreneurial endeavors outside. So I have a little bit of background with Doc, and so it's really great to have him on. I believe he's got a great story to share and some very insightful information on how he is contributing to the veteran community. So before we get into your actual veteran support experience, can you give our audience an overview of your connection to the military and our veteran community?
It's so funny. I grew up in Williamsburg, Virginia, where it all began, and my father preached Air Force my entire upbringing, and it never took. My younger brother was my junior, graduated high school on a Saturday, and on Sunday was on the van to Paris Island to become a Marine. And so I watched that unfold, and through a series of just aha moments, I realized my previous background had prepared me for the moment when I decided to enlist myself in the Army as a combat medic. So I did that later in life, self-employed for about 15 years, started in the world of competitive subjective bodybuilding, and then moved from that to television professional wrestling for a few years. Wrestling for a decent-sized program. And then I realized that I needed to I could use my physicality in a service capacity. So I joined the Army as a combat medic and turned 30 at basic training.
Wow, yeah, it is a different avenue for sure for most as they enlist. It's usually right out of high school, or they do a small stint at a job and they realize I got to do something with greater purpose, and so they decide to go into the military. But yeah, that's a very interesting background, having gone into the entertainment business per se, right, with the wrestling and things like that, because that's not a standard route that you hear a lot of people. So what kind of drove you down that route for a period of time?
Well, I couldn't say that the bodybuilding lifestyle was a selfless practice. I competed for 8 years, and of those 5 of them, I pretty much made my living with it. Eat, sleep, train, tan, show. I had wonderful sponsor support at the time. I was able to pretty much dedicate myself to the practice of gaining weight and then pulling off the body fat and getting ready for a contest. That was my life. That's how I paid my bills. It was great. I did personal training as a side hustle for the most part. After that, wrestling and entertainment, that was just like a natural segue. If you remember MySpace, the social network deal, they saw me on MySpace and they said, hey, if this is really you, if you're 25 with no injuries and no kids, we want to offer you a tryout in Hampton, Virginia. And I tell you what, I've been the bulk of Special Forces selection training that for Bragg, and I can tell you that what they did to me in those few hours was harder than Nasty Nick and what that whole training, whatever initial phase of selection really entailed. So moving from that and watching my brother's path, love my brother, Michael, shout out, love you. And watching him transition from the Corps back into civilian life, and he just had such a hard time going in on his own. He really just didn't have anybody holding his hand. And I know that, we're supposed to be tough guys and stuff, but the military culture, especially for a young, as we just discussed, straight out of high school. I mean, he went from being a 177-pound Cheeto eating, video game playing, Code Red, Mountain Dew drinking teenage boy to being a 155-pound, 26-inch waist, hard as nails killer in the Marine Corps. And then when he got out, because he did some tours and he's seen some stuff, he'd had enough. He was like, maybe this isn't for me long term. So he decided to go back into what we call the real world. And so watching him struggle to get professional and personal traction those years, really, it tugged on me, because it was like, you know what? Everyone thinks, you're the Ashby, you're the guy that goes to the military, not Michael. Michael's great at what he did, but I looked the part. And so there was a higher expectation. And then it just hit me in the heart. And, I went through the market crash in 2010, being in a luxury market of personal training. When people reevaluated their budgets, personal trainers and the cleaning ladies were the first to go. So I saw it as an opportunity to shift over and still meet my family's needs, but answer that call appropriately.
Yeah, awesome. That's an interesting path. It's it's always intriguing to hear the different paths that people have been on, but yet they have a lot of commonality in them. So as you transitioned out, did you know you wanted to become an entrepreneur, or is it something that kind of came along after your transition?
Transition out of what?
The military.
Oh, brother, I was born an entrepreneur. I was selling blow pops in school. I was cutting grass. I had a few lawnmowers running through the neighborhoods and kids cutting grass. And I had a business mind, but I had the fortunate opportunity to link up with some great business mentors. I began working at a GNC franchise store at a young age, and Reed and Nancy Atkins, can't love them enough. They're just great people. Really took me under their wing when it came to bigger business perspective. And so I worked with them for a number of years. I think I finished with them in 2003. But being able to scale the idea of going to the gym one day, preparing for a contest, and having a timeshare salesman say, hey, kid, could you teach me how to do what you do to get in the shape that you're in? I said, yeah, sure, I could do that. They said, if I give you $50 an hour, how soon could you start? I said, I just finished my workout. Let's go. And so, and that was me. I grew up, like I said, Williamsburg, Virginia. A lot of my friends were experiencing high-end pressure from their parents to excel in academics so they could get into like a William and Mary College or go to Radford or Tech or something like that. I had no interest in that. It wasn't my plan. I was thinking, wow, you guys are going to accrue a lot of student loans debt with no guarantee on the other side. I'm making annually what it costs to send your butt to school, doing what I love. I go to work in shorts. I mean, it didn't get much better than that. So college was not an immediate call for me, and entrepreneur DNA is really hard to deny. And I experienced that over the last 6 years being in the Army. I felt like I was it was my duty. It was my duty to just dedicate my attention to the mission. I was able to parallel a few things and garner some really terrific sponsor support along the way. But I really just gave myself to veteran nonprofit sector, and it was wonderful practice, experience, networking, connections, all the things that the entrepreneur life brings outside of just a lot of extra money. So being in the Army was my mission for 6 years, and when I had the opportunity to segue out, I was ready.
Yeah, no, that's great. It definitely, entrepreneurs can only suppress that desire for so long to have their own, their own business or their own nonprofit or whatever. And so, I've seen a lot of military that kind of start that process prior to getting out, and so they just know this is what I want to do. This is my dream now, and so it continues to give them that higher purpose to serve that they had when they went in the military, which is what will continue to drive their passion for launching their business, which obviously as an entrepreneur will go through many hills and valleys to be successful. So as you got out and you started Patriot Heart Press was what you started when you got out, right?
Actually, while I was in, I was taking advantage of a free resource, which is a tip. The military family life counselors, they were available on post, and so I visited with them and discussed, the transition from being married to one woman for 10 and a half years and having two amazing sons that you gave some credit to in the intro there with Titus and Maximus. We'll talk more about them in a little bit. But yeah, just life stuff in the context of being a soldier, that kind of thing. So I was talking to the counselor and they said, hey, you've got the gym thing down. You can work out clearly to get your frustrations and stuff out, but have you got an artistic outlet to express your unmet expectations, your idealistic notions, your romanticisms, all that kind of stuff? And I was like, what do you mean, like Taylor Swift, like writing love songs or something? I'm not mad at my exes. I just got to deal with this stuff. I got to process it. And he said, just start by writing it down. If you start singing, that's fine, but write it down. Right. And so it started as an exercise, a little practice, and then I really found a sweet spot, and I started writing more and more, and it felt less and less like work. And then I found myself up till all hours, and I just look at my watch and go, oh, I should go to bed. I got to do PT here in a few hours. But I knew. And so the moment that I realized that writing and creating a story out of my life experiences, stories that have been shared with me from other veterans and service members and just great people that are close to me, when I realized that, I gave myself or dedicated myself to the education of self-publishing and where things are at today. How to actually write a book. I've been in touch with Tim Grawl and his workshops. Also Chandler Bolt of Self-Publishing School. A lot of credit to those guys for bringing me up to speed through 2017. I mean, it's funny, you find your jam at 35 years old. Turns out you're more brains than brawn. All that working out stuff doesn't seem like it was so important.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting path for how you found that passion to write and be able to not only just write a book, a series of books, which to me I always find a phenomenal skill, because it's one thing to think through what would you put in a book, right? But to have that book carry on for a series, much like a movie, is pretty phenomenal, because that's a lot. You got to think way ahead on where these characters are going, where the storyline's going, and be able to carry that out over time so that it lasts, right? And it's engaging. And so that's quite a skill.
It really ties back into what we were just talking about, being an entrepreneur. That's the only way I do think, is super long term. I see the end way out in the distance, and then I reverse engineer it to bring myself into action steps to get to that point. So there's definitely talent involved. I mean, obviously nobody would tune in to listen to my weekly chapter readings on Facebook Live that I do if it wasn't. The comments that I get are fantastic. The fan interaction, it's a real thing. And I even had the opportunity of successfully meeting the goal of a Kickstarter that I gave myself 2 weeks to reach the goal, and we nailed it in, I think it was 12 days. Done. That was, to me, that was a real heads up. Like, I'm onto something. People love me. They love what this is doing for them, for their community. Enough. And that's what, as an entrepreneur, you have to look at. The market determines what's good and what's not. So
Yeah.
meeting the expectation of the market and getting more ideas in the hopper is what I get excited about, knowing that I have longevity with this practice. So I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the key to any business, right? Is you want to make sure you have that longevity and that it's sustainable, and you can pivot and evolve your whatever your service or product is over time. And obviously, with the series, it affords that. But of course, this a series doesn't mean there won't be another series, right? And so it's just a matter of how quickly can you write and get them published.
Honestly, what I've found is the opposite of what most authors would rant about publicly or complain about having not enough content or writer's block. It's just the opposite right now. I've got the next 5 to 7 years worth of work before me because of how I've shared on the platforms with Facebook Live and Instagram Live, Periscope. Other veterans have heard, and they see me physically. They visually see my face reading the stories that they can relate to regarding their service member brothers and sisters or their lives, their relationships. And I get emotional. I don't rehearse reading my chapters like before I do a presentation 1 week to the next. And so I am emotionally involved. I'm very, very, like, these people are real to me. These characters are very real. Much like any author that's written a book that really touched on personal stuff. So when I'm reading and I'm emoting in the moment, other people are responding in kind. And that's a powerful thing, because it's even given people the unction to reach out to me in the Messenger app and go, hey, I haven't shared this with anybody, but my experiences downrange. I haven't told my spouse, but would you help me to communicate this so it can help people? And I'm like, whoa, that's a huge responsibility.
Yeah, that's deep. Yeah.
And what I've gotten so far, I mean, I have people that are serious and they're acting in line with their speech, and they're sending me content like real accounts. Some of them are audio, some of them are written down, but I will go through that and then create a story, changing the names and faces to protect the innocent, of course. But what a process that is for that soldier or for that veteran that's able to walk it out, just put it on paper, or to talk it out. And when they're talking, I'm getting these audio files, they're crying, I'm listening to it, I'm trying to collect myself and make sense of it. But it's such a beautiful thing, because you mentioned in the intro, healing, hope, and understanding. And that's really come together in the last several months, honestly, the clarity of that vision and that mission with everything that I'm writing. The children's books, they're for children of military families. And to be able to co-author those with my sons, it's very personal, but it's also big picture. We want to bring that understanding so that there can be a process of healing, and then give them hope for the future. And being able to hone and refine your target audience and who you love the most, or who you're dedicating your energy to, it's super powerful. So I feel like I've made even more progress since I've gotten out and been able to free up my mind to think about that and to move in that track. It's so great.
Yeah, that's an amazing way to give back to the veteran community. It's very original. It's it's really a new kind of space to be able to give back. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to get more into exactly how Doc is using his platform with Patriot Heart Press to give back and support the veteran community as a whole, not just the military member themselves after they transition, but the whole family aspect. And that's where he touches on having the children's book and as well as his adult series. And so when we come back from break, we'll get more into exactly how he's touching this community. We'll be right back. Landmark Life Coaching's vision is to be the nation's premier coaching partner for inspiring and empowering those in transition. They partner with courageous groundbreakers in transitioning veterans to create fulfilling and empowering futures that they desire. They have partnered with various entrepreneurs and transitioning veterans to leverage their core strengths and implement the framework for the future they always dreamed of. Could you or anyone you know benefit from a success partner to bring clarity to your future or their future? If so, please check out landmarklifecoaching.com for more information and charliemikepodcast.com for the Charlie Mike Podcast, showcasing the successes of combat veteranpreneurs. Okay, we are back from commercial break with Doc Collins of Patriot Heart Press. Before we went to break, Doc was telling us about how he spent time in the military, some of the interesting things he did prior to going into the military, and how he evolved to being an author that is able to serve the military / veteran / families of the community. And it's a very interesting and different approach that you don't see in a lot of other organizations that are there for the veteran community. There's a couple I know that do it through music in different ways, and that's very, very interesting. Such a natural talent that these people have that they are able to share with an entire community that has, as Doc was saying before we went to break, this amazing ability to heal people because now they have an avenue to release this information themselves. And he can then use those stories within what he's doing to help a greater audience, which ultimately the individual that was able to heal themselves through the process is also part of that. And so it's almost, in my mind, like a donors program, right? The person can donate part of them to a greater cause and see so many people benefit from it. So, when we were given the introduction, a large part of what Doc's platform is based on is healing, hope, and understanding. And so, Doc, can you give us a little overview of how you built that in, as how that those ideas of how your platform was built?
Well, the story 1,300 Hours is the first of a 5-book series. It starts at 1,300 hours, 1,400 hours, 1,500 hours, 1,000 points to the person that can guess the next title. But ending at 1,700 hours, which in military time is 5 o'clock, which is also quitting time and a good place to stop. So the premise involves two characters. It's a boy meets girl story that takes the military perspective and puts it into the female's role as opposed to the male. I feel like we have enough stories where G.I. Joe comes and saves the day, the damsel in distress, and all that stuff. So I decided to flip the script and give the female the military perspective, but put her in a high op-tempo action role so that it kind of meets everybody's needs that's involved in the story. So she's a flight nurse. She works as an ER nurse at MCV in Richmond. So I was able to use the landscape of a place that I love, the city of Richmond, that I've fallen in love with years ago. And that sets the stage for their interaction. She has a canine MP at her side, and home. It explains why she gets access to a retired canine MP very quickly. But she has everything that we can all relate to, either for ourselves or we've got a brother or sister at our left or our right. Sleeplessness, moral trauma, PTSD, TBI, survivor guilt, all of that. So she's had a couple marriages, rangers, guys that disappear, that have gone by the wayside. And so she's meeting a civilian, a guy who's known baseball, and he's a B-list celebrity athlete his whole life. He loses the wife of his youth very quickly. He put all his eggs in the basket of baseball and this relationship. But as a B-list celebrity athlete, he's got expectations to be in the public eye, that sort of thing. And he's a recluse, but he's started a physical therapy practice of his own. So he has a clinic. Ava comes in as a patient. They interact, and it unfolds from there. But taking somebody from the far right of being, a transport for wounded soldiers from the battlegrounds to the next echelon of care at Landstuhl, she's exposed to the worst of the worst. She sees the hell that war is. And then you've got pretty baseball boy over here who really has a great heart, but he just doesn't understand her world at all. And I feel like that's a common practice. I feel like in whatever case, you've got a service member that wants something different than somebody else in uniform, and so they forge relationships with those from the other side, if you will. Bringing that understanding through this series of books is crucial for different marriages. I mean, I've shared chunks of content with mill spouses, and they're going, oh my gosh, I wish I would have known that. I wish I would have heard that. I wish I would have read that before so I could have understood. And so through a very practical means, wrapped in escapism and a fictitious story, people are actually connecting and going, that's exactly right. Mm-hmm. A lot of head nods, a lot of thumbs up from people that have encountered that. You know, you don't hear from your spouse for 2-3 weeks. You get a sat phone call, it's broken up, and then you don't understand why they can't tell you where they are, when they're coming back, what they're doing, any of that kind of stuff. And they're like, maybe, is it personal? They don't think I can handle that. I would never tell anyone. Of course, it's just OPSEC didn't make it into your world yet. So all of those things on a practical level are hitting some pretty important chords with people and bringing that trio, that healing, hope, and understanding at their level, with their level of comfort and interaction with the story. I'm very excited to bring all 5 stages together over this next year and a half, 2 years. It's in the romance genre, but I'll warn everybody, it's sweet, but it's got a lot of sour, a lot of real world, a lot of grit, hard stuff. You know, if you lived in our world, then that's kind of what you expect. You know that it's not all rainbows and posies and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm always really amazed by the whole aspect of being able to give back to the community in this way and be able to reach so many different aspects of the community with one service, basically, through the books. And I love the idea that you're also doing this at the kids level, right? Because kids sometimes are the forgotten parts of a military family. You know, and I won't even say that they always think of the spouse even, but the spouse will at least at some point get thought of, but the kids seem to be that forgotten aspect. And so that is a huge area to be able to give back to.
So it never really dawned on me on my own to own that. I wish I could take credit for it and go, I'm going to start with the couple, and then I'm going to build the family from the bottom. No, it was offered or extended to me, and I was even curious, or I thought it really strange. I was being a wingman for a bro that was talking to some ladies at a bar in Dallas, and he introduced me in a way that would maybe bring his stock up. Hey, this is my new Army veteran brother, writes romance. What do you think of that? And so I was like, how is this going to help you get, her number or whatever? But she was interested enough, and she said, well, give me your website. So I airdropped it to her. I didn't want her to have my phone number, so I airdropped it. And I went and ate dinner like a normal guy, came back a couple hours later, checking on the scene, making sure he's good. And she says, so I read your website. I was like, oh, you looked at it. That's great. Thank you. She says, no, I read it. I was like, you're at a bar. This guy's a stud, and you're reading a website on your phone? Well, that's interesting. She says, well, I'm a shot caller with Scholastic, and you're going to write children's books. So
wow.
Just put that out there. And I was like, well, what makes you think I'm qualified to write these children's books? She said, well, I read your bio. I read everything. You're a father. She says the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade demographic are starved for content. It's also the pivotal point that they decide if they're going to continue to be readers or not. They know how to read, but they're going to make that decision in their mind if they're going to consume media through reading. So it's a very personal mission of hers to get books, good books, on what they're interested in their hands. And she says the number one topic that they're interested in is war.
Wow,
so
that's powerful. Yeah.
That hit me just like it hit you. And I'm standing there thinking, ooh, again, responsibility, right? There's a weight that comes with this. It's a creative art. It's a beautiful thing. I love being able to compose in the moment, no matter where I am, and emote with that. So, I mean, I know Gulf Shores I'm the new guy in town. They probably think I'm the wimpy guy that cries in the coffee shops or whatever while he's working on his computer. But it's very special, but it is a very big responsibility. The explanation of a place called war that mommy or daddy goes to is unsatisfactory to that demographic. And then the reasoning or the explanation of why mommy or daddy died at a place called war also leaves them with more questions than answers. And so my intention with these 3 books is to deliver on that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I can't wait for those to come out. They are going to be amazing. That is certainly a part of our, veteran family community that needs that kind of support. And so that will have a huge positive impact.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, definitely. So this has been an amazing conversation. As we're running out of time, I'd like to give you an opportunity to let our listeners know exactly how they can get in contact with you and learn more about Patriot Heart Press.
Excellent. You can find me week to week on Facebook Live. My Facebook, you can search simply Doc Collins, DocCollins. I'm on Twitter @RealDocCollins. And my home base, HQ for everything, is going to be Patriot Heart Press, all spelled out, patriotheartpress.com. That's my HQ, and you can find links to anything ancillary to that from there. And I've also been added to the speaking consortium at Bravo 748. So it's Bravo, and then the number is 748. I share some incredible company. I've got Boone Cutler. I've got Bobby Headline, some really fantastic storytellers in the veteran space that have really a huge range. They can tug at the heartstrings. They can make you laugh your face off. Wonderful people. And so I thank Jamie Burton for bringing me into the fold there.
All right. Well, awesome. Thank you again for being on the show, Doc. And most importantly, thank you for your service to our country and our veterans post-service.
I love what I've done. Thank you so much.
Remember, loyal listeners, we are the home of the free because of the brave.
Thank you for tuning in to Charlie Mike Podcast with Dwayne Perro. Our objective is to bring successful veteranpreneurs to help inspire and provide insight into what helped them become successful, with the hopes you can take away various strategies you can implement in your entrepreneurial journey. Visit us on iTunes, leave us a rating and review, and let us know what you thought of the show. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hoorah!